So, Labcorp, a huge name in the life sciences world, just put out their latest numbers. But what's really going on behind the scenes? Well, we're going to break it all down.
Okay, let's just jump right in. The first thing that really grabbed everyone's attention was this number right here, Labcorp's earnings per share. I mean, they didn't just meet the forecast, they totally crushed it. But, and this is a big but, here's where the story gets a little more complicated. While they absolutely killed it on profit, their overall revenue, well, it came in a bit short. So you've got this mixed signal, which makes you wonder, what's really happening here? To figure this all out, we're going to walk through 4 key questions. First, we'll look at the scorecard for the quarter. Then we'll dig into what's driving their growth. After that, we'll talk challenges. And finally, we'll look at their game plan for next year. All right, so let's get into it. How did Labcorp actually do in the last quarter of 2025, when you look past just the headlines? This chart gives you a really nice snapshot. You can see the full year was actually super strong. I mean, revenue up over 7% and profits just jumped by a whopping 13%. But that last quarter was, a bit of a mixed bag. So that brings up the next big question. If the year was so strong, where's all this growth actually coming from? Let's pop the hood and see what's powering this thing. And it really comes down to 3 key things. Think of it like a 3-legged stool. They're making smart acquisitions and partnerships. They're really focused on high-value specialty testing, and their business that supports clinical trials is just on a roll. Now, their acquisition strategy is really interesting. They're not just buying up other companies. Nope, they're playing a much smarter game by partnering up with hospital systems. And that move alone has added over $1 billion to their revenue. That's huge. But it's not just about getting bigger, it's about getting smarter. Labcorp is going all in on what's called esoteric or specialty testing. Think cutting-edge diagnostics for really complex diseases like cancer. This is where the higher profit margins are, and it is a massive part of their plan for the future. And a perfect example of this in action is their acquisition of Invitae. This wasn't just another deal, it was a really bold play to make them a leader in the super hot field of genetic testing. Just like the CEO said, it was all about expanding their leadership. Okay, but no company has a perfectly smooth ride to the top. Labcorp's dealing with its own challenges, and how they handle them is what's really going to matter. So, their biggest issue? They have a part of their business that just isn't performing as well as it should. So what are they doing? They're doing a little strategic housekeeping, really streamlining their early development business to make it healthier and more focused. And that means they're actually willing to take a $50 million hit to their annual revenue. Now that might sound like a lot, but it's really about taking a small step back now to take a much bigger leap forward in profitability later on. And speaking of those little bumps in the road, that dip in testing volume last quarter definitely raised some eyebrows. But here's the crucial thing to understand. It was a one-time thing with just one client. It was not a sign of some bigger, scarier trend in the market. So, with a leaner operation and a crystal clear focus, what does the road ahead look like for Labcorp? Let's dive into their game plan for 2026. And honestly, it's a pretty confident game plan. Just look at this guidance. They're projecting really solid growth pretty much everywhere, but especially that 9% jump in earnings per share. That tells you the leadership team is feeling pretty good.
And they are absolutely putting their money where their mouth is. They're actually increasing their spending on new equipment and facilities, what we call capital expenditures. And that's a classic sign of a company that's investing in its own long-term growth.
And the crown jewel of this investment is a massive new facility. This thing is going to be the heart of their central lab business, and it is a total game changer. It's going to let them handle more clinical trials and just serve their customers way better. So that leaves us with this final thought. By trimming the fat, focusing on those high-growth specialty areas, and investing heavily in their strengths, is Labcorp setting itself up for a much healthier, more profitable future? It seems like a pretty smart bet.